Hey everybody, it's Brian. Before I did this Seahawks stuff full time, I worked as a manager and senior leader, so I know how lonely it can be to try to find someone you trust to talk through people issues, org issues, process issues as you try to lead an organization. Ryan Cleveland of RyanCleveland.com is someone I trust to have those conversations with. He specializes in working with CEOs and business owners, and you can get a complimentary free discovery session to see if it's a good fit for you. Just go to RyanCleveland.com to sign up and start now. Hello, everybody. Now you should be able to hear me. Hey, everybody. We're back. Brian Nemhauser for another episode of Real Hawk Talk, and we've got a full crew. We've got Dayna O'Gorman. We've got Jeff Simmons. Dayna and I are at the Combine, just mainly here to troll Jeff and make him feel bad for not being here. How are we doing so far, Jeff?
I'm good. I'm your biggest guest you've had today so far. So I'm glad I can top Mike Macdonald, but...
It's true. I think Mike Macdonald's probably tuning into this episode to see what he can learn. We got a lot to cover. We've got Dayna and I spent a lot of time talking to prospects today, and so we'll do our best to remember who we talked to and what we found. Won't be perfect. Jeff, you've got stuff that you've been keeping us in the loop on. I think the team report cards came out. I think there's other things I've got listed on my notes here. What was it? There's a couple other things that came out. Well, we'll talk about all that, what you've been hearing. And for people that are wondering, I don't have like some kind of cramp in my arm that I'm holding it like this. I still don't have a pair of headphones. I got 2 headphones last night delivered, and they both still don't work properly. So I have to hold the microphone on this headphone in order for me to be able to hear either of you. So I'm going to be sitting like this, cramping my hand for however long we do this show. So that's just going to be an effect. We're gonna.
Brian has much steadier hands than I do. Do you remember when we did that live show outside of the bar before week 1, and I was hungover and I was trying to hold your phone and I couldn't come close to keeping it straight?
It was pretty bad, dude.
I was very hungover until I saw Evan and his buddy and realized we were all. So your hands are a lot steadier than mine. I don't have a future in being a doctor, but not that.
It's so true. It's so true. So I'm curious, Dayna, your second day at the Combine.
Yep.
What were kind of the things that stood out to you today?
Well, this was kind of the day I was waiting for, to be honest with you, because I wanted to be able to chat with these players. And I mean, it's great to talk to the coaches and to see the GMs and all of that, but, you know, we get a lot of exposure to them throughout the year. So it was nice to be able to actually, you know, sit there. I say sit down and chat. That's not what it is. It's a scrum in front of some of these players. But, and to just kind of get a feel for their personality, you know, that's a big part of football for me. And so it was really a lot of fun. It was busy. It was real busy.
Were there any players that you in particular kind of found yourself drawn to?
Yeah. So today was defensive line day. You know, I love that so much. I was so happy. But so, yeah, and I took my little notes because I know how you guys are about that. But I went and talked to, I'm going to let you say his name because I will butcher it, but his nickname is O2.
Oluwafemi Oladejo.
Yes. Awesome guy. This guy, he won, I think, the Good Guy Award at the Senior Bowl. He is, I should say, I'm so sorry, he's from UCLA.
Yep, edge player.
Yeah, and
Grant Cohen's over here cheering. He's a UCLA guy.
But this guy just kind of exuded leadership. He could be the new poster child for the NFL. He's got a great smile. He loves to talk. He totally is engaging, but obviously is quite the player too. He gets. He was mentioned by other players at their podiums today as being, you know, just fabulous and a great guy in the locker room. And you could really feel that from him when we were having our conversations. So.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the most impressive people I talked to today and listened to, and You know, I was telling Dayna before we got on. I wasn't like I didn't give myself the best grade on my Mike Macdonald interview. I know people liked it, which is great. I'm glad people did. But there's one question in particular I really wanted to ask him, and I'm going to ask him at some point anyway. But there's this fine line between being a nice, good person. That you're like, okay, I'm impressed with this person, and they're going to be reliable, and they're going to do their job well, and being a little bit insane. And you kind of need to be insane to be a great football player, and that's a fine line. So I want to know, like, for Mike Macdonald, like John Schneider spent a lot of time yesterday talking about we're really looking at the people.
Yeah.
And if everyone assumes that, like someone said, that sounds like Tim Ruskell when they started drafting for character. And I thought that too, but I'm not sure that's what they're looking for. Like, it could be that they're looking for a little bit of that edge too. So like when I hear Olufemi talk, by the way, he also goes by Femi, if you like that. That was my only thing is like, is he too good?
Is he too nice?
Is he too good?
Yeah, is he too nice? And he talked about his family. His parents were born in Nigeria. He's been back to Nigeria multiple times. He told a great story about how he had to explain American football to his relatives in Nigeria. They don't understand it, like why a helmet. Like, it was a great story. But you do get that really nice guy image without... There's no cheese to him, though. He's not, cheesy in any way. He's just really good. So it makes you wonder, it's like... And maybe that's where I need you to go back and watch some more film. But does he have just that little bit of an edge that lets him be the football player you need him to be?
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, you and I have mocked him to the Seahawks in middle rounds multiple times. He had a fantastic Senior Bowl, the actual game. He's an interesting player. And I asked Mike Macdonald a little bit later whether they felt good about their edge players or whether they feel like they need to add, because the edge rush really dropped off the second half of the season. And Mike Macdonald was like, we feel pretty good. And basically the way he answered gave me the impression that edge is not a particularly big priority for them. How do you feel about that, if that's the case?
A little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They have a lot of B pass rushers. I think what can make this defense go from good to great is getting A pass rusher. And even like Baltimore, you saw when you just took Clowney out of that defense this year, they didn't have this. I'm not Dayna, I know. I'm not saying Clowney specifically, but I'm saying a physical guy like him. They lost Clowney in that defense, and they looked remarkably different in terms of just like intimidation. Mike's defense has elevated like the Kyle Van Noy's. And we've seen him elevate. You saw what happened with Boye and Derek Hall the first half of the season. But maybe they're banking on a healthy Uchenna Nwosu, and maybe that changes things. But I think I'm honestly evaluating it. They're good there, but they're nowhere near great. And we've talked about like the impact of game wreckers and things like that. Maybe he's playing coy, or maybe he's just not trying to give anything away. But it doesn't make me feel great. I think they're like a solid B there. I think they could use an A player in that group to really turn this thing into a good for great.
Dayna, speaking of edge players, one of the you've seen, like, you talk about the scrum.
Oh my gosh.
There's some guys, which is kind of nice. Like Abdul Carter obviously had this massive group. I don't care. We're not getting Abdul Carter.
I didn't even try. No.
No reason to listen to that. But there was another guy you did want to listen to, and he had a particularly interesting experience at his press conference.
Are you talking about Mike Green?
Mike, yes, yeah. Mike Green.
So Mike Green, for those of you guys out of Marshall, and that's why when I was reading about him, I was like, oh, small school, I want to go talk to him. Plus the fact that he had 17 sacks last year, right? Like, so I was excited to go. I walked up to that press conference because I went from O2 over there, and it was a little tense, just to say that.
It sounded testy,
a little tense, just because apparently, he had some issues in his past, and he kept insisting, they just kept bringing him up and asking him about them, and he's like, I didn't do anything wrong, move on. But then when he was talking about football, you could really see the passion, but there was also a serious chip on your shoulder, and that's what I said to him, or to Brian. I said, I like that kid, but man, that chip is a boulder. It was huge. But do we like that a little bit?
I think we do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure Mike Green's a fit for other reasons, but
right.
Doug Baldwin one of the best people I've ever met, super smart. I don't know many people that have a bigger chip on his shoulder. Like, and he still has it, you know, like, I do think that was a big part of that LOB era. Like, almost all of those guys were lower drafted, undrafted, you know, had gone through it. You're going to say, Jeff?
Said like they were pissed off all the time.
Yeah.
They were.
That was part of what made them.
I loved it.
It was.
I mean,
it was amazing.
I don't think it's a prerequisite, right? The 2005 Super Bowl squad was not full of, I feel like, angry guys.
No, very little. Lofa was
right.
a super nice guy.
Sean Alexander, Walter Jones, like these aren't like hardcore guys. So it's not like a prerequisite, but I heard from multiple folks like the Mike Creed podium thing was, okay, tell us about the sexual assault charge. And then someone would say, did you talk to the Steelers? And then someone would say, tell us about why you got booted off this team. Did you meet with the Bills? Like,
So weird.
This poor kid, you know, I mean, who knows? Maybe he did enough that he deserves to face his consequences. But it was, I wasn't there for it. I don't think the Seahawks are going to take him, so I wasn't all that interested. But it sounded like a bit of an experience.
It was just interesting because you could just see the full shift in his emotions and his body language was like, and then he's like, yay, because he was talking about football, and he's like, again. It's like, I felt bad for the kid. That had to be a roller coaster, but.
Are there other like moments today that stood out to you, players you talked to, or moments in those?
I did. So a couple of odd little things. Jared Ivey, Ole Miss, 6'6", 285. He was insanely calm. He was so mellow. Like nothing seemed to faze him until they talked about missing the playoffs, right? And so that was, not getting into the playoffs. He was just like, that bugged him. You could see that competitive nature. It was really interesting. Otherwise, he was like, there was like nothing there. He was like butter, right?
Yeah.
Like there was not much going on there. I enjoyed that one a lot. I thought that one was really good. I talked to, just for a minute, Josiah Stewart, who is an edge out of Michigan. He seems a kid that's kind of amped up all the time, and so that one was really interesting to me too. But they were all defensive players, but they just felt like defensive players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was the one kid, I'm going to butcher his name. Is it Schlesinger?
Carson Schlesinger.
Yeah. Linebacker out of UCLA.
Getting Grant all excited with all the UCLA guys. Yeah.
UCLA, he looked like he should have been on a surfboard somewhere.
He did.
He cracked me up. But he really talked about the importance of special teams and how that he didn't care if he played special teams, that he was going on about special teams, how it's one play that can change a game. And it was good to see him have a little bit of passion about something most people kind of throw away, especially when they're trying to be a starter somewhere. He was all about it. It was a really good interview.
Yeah, there's a few guys that kind of stood out to me as well. I thought Princely Emanamilian was really well spoken and very confident, comfortable in his own skin. One of the guys that probably stood out to me the most today, defensive tackle Jordan Phillips from Maryland. There was one moment. Again, you got the scrum, and everyone's talking over each other. And if you guys are getting the members' videos that I'm posting, you can hear me try to talk. Someone talks over me. Hear me try. Like, it's annoying, I'm sure, to hear, but that's just how it is. Anyway, so somebody starts to ask a question, and Jordan says, "Hold on, ladies first."
Aww.
And went to the female reporter, and it was impressive the way he did it. You know, a young man standing up there. And he spent a lot of time talking about his leadership style. He's also asked about, like, how did you develop your leadership style and what have you learned? And he's like, you know, there's some people that I've learned I got to get in their face, and that's what gets them going. There's other people I've learned that, you know, you kind of got to pull them aside one-on-one and have those conversations. It was a pretty mature perspective on how to be a leader. He's a captain, I think, at Maryland, and he was super impressive. I'll have that video posted later as well. I liked my conversation with Savion Jones.
Yeah, I was there for that too. That was
he
was a cool kid. Like, I just really liked it. I liked him a lot. He was neat.
I was kind of surprised that they have like the podiums where the bigger scrums are, and then they have these tables for guys that I think they assume are going to have fewer people, and he was in one of the tables.
I know. His table was packed.
He had a great Senior Bowl, so I mean, he should have been right up there with any of those other guys.
Yeah, I agree.
Was it just the edge guys, or were the DTs in today all day?
Well, so it's supposed to be DTs today, but it came around to when they were supposed to be speaking, and 10 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, a half an hour goes by, 45 minutes, an hour. Like, I don't know what happened, but they just started leaking out one at a time, and so I don't know. I talked to JJ Pegues.
Okay.
That was great. I'll have that posted later. Talked to Kenneth Grant.
Okay, I was going to ask.
He had a huge...
Those are the guys
scrum.
that were like hours late, right?
They were hours late.
Yeah, I missed a bunch of those guys because I just assumed they weren't coming. So, yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
How
Who
many
else?
players did Grant convince Kyle Shanahan's a terrible coach?
I don't think any.
Did he tell them that Kyle hates special teams?
That would have been a good addition. But
trying to think DTs. Kenneth Grant would have been cool. Who are the other guys we always draft, Brian?
Look at my notes here.
Jordan Birch?
Oh, so yeah, Jordan Birch, edge guy. I talked to him. I got to admit, didn't love the interview. I didn't love the conversation. He came across as a little bit, I don't know if arrogance is the right word, but he wasn't really interested in being there. And I asked him what his weight was, which was the thing I was most interested in. I think he said he's about 281. I think people had talked about him being all the way up towards 295.
It's a little late.
I think it's actually like probably the right weight for him. I'm interested in what he runs, but I didn't
feel. What about Caldwell from Oregon?
So I missed Jamari. I don't know if he came out but he wasn't there when he was supposed to be, so that was annoying. I did talk to David Walker. He was a pleasure. The edge rusher from Arkansas? Central Arkansas. He had a great Senior Bowl, and hasn't talked to the Seahawks though. I asked a lot of edge rushers. I think Olufemi had
talked to Seattle.
So that's news.
Yeah.
We should share. I haven't gone back through all my notes about who has talked to the Seahawks and who hasn't, but most of the edge rushers had not.
I know everyone has talked to is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think
God.
every single player had a formal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know what they're doing down there, but everybody did. It was crazy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I did hear the GM of the Raiders talk about like a secret that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers used to develop interior offensive line. And I don't know if he was supposed to say that, but he was on with, I think, Florio and Sims yesterday. And he said that one of the things they looked for to find interior offensive linemen was small school left tackles. And they talked about Ali Marpet. That's where they found him. I think Gray Zabel was a small school left tackle. Graham Barden, small school left tackle. Apparently that's one, and the Bucs have been one of the best developing offensive line. They've gotten a few of these. Ryan Jensen, they said, was a small school left tackle. Apparently that was like a key of how to find undervalued offensive line to play interior. He said that's always the best athlete on the team. If they're playing left tackle and they're at a small school and they're not big enough, they're going to be amazing interior. So Gray Zabel, someone like that. So I made note of that in my mind, but I don't think he was supposed to give that away on public radio. But
I think here a lot of things accidentally slip, and then they're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I think we hear that a lot. Brian and I both were also at, what was it? Oh, Bassa, Jeffrey Bassa.
Uh-huh.
He was a
Oregon.
good interview, too. I enjoyed that one very much.
Say why?
Really good. I don't know. I just really kind of enjoyed the feel. Again, you guys know me. I'm not someone who sits and watches a ton of film. Like, I try and watch highlights on these players as we get to know them and stuff. So I go so much off of my gut when I'm interviewing these people. And he just seemed really genuine. Like, he just seemed like kind of a good egg and really very in-depth with his answers. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, he was very comfortable. So I thought he was great. I thought Demetrius Knight, another linebacker, was great. Another guy that stood out to me, Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College, another edge rusher. Like a lot of these guys are really, really well spoken. I talked to Shamar Stewart, who I think everyone knows I'm a big fan of. He had a pretty big scrum.
I know. I went back and forth with Josiah or Shamar because they were both at the same time.
Did you talk to Josiah?
I did.
What did you think of him?
It was good. It was good. Like again, I think that he was a little edgy, little hyped up, a little tight. But yeah, he was good.
Shamar Stewart. I mean, I have to go back and listen.
I know you do like 40 Indies in a day.
Vibes are important, man.
I mean, the impression I got was kind of what matches his card, which is the guy is so talented and maybe just doesn't even realize what he needs to do about it to be more productive. I actually asked him, like, okay, everybody knows how great of an athlete you are. Everybody also then says, well, why don't you have more sacks, like more production? He had 4.5 sacks in his entire career, right? And he said something along the lines of, I just didn't chase stats. I was just it was a fine answer. But the overall interview, like you guys will hear it when I get it posted. I think it's up there for club level and higher members right now. It'll go out to public later, I think tomorrow morning. But I don't know. Like I wasn't blown away. I wasn't scared off, but I wasn't blown away.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think he's going to most likely just absolutely kill on the field in the testing. We'll see how he does in the interviews, because if he doesn't do well in the interviews, he may be available for the Seahawks.
I think what's interesting with these players, because just to set the stage, you guys, there's 8 podiums and 3 to 4 tables and 20 minutes. You got to get through them all if you can. Like, it's very difficult. That's why you got to pick and choose, right? And so it's hard to get a feel if you want to see more than one person. But what you can really gauge is how comfortable they are talking to people. And you can tell these kids who are just dreading every second of every one of these questions, right? Like, they just don't want to say something wrong. They're just nervous. And then you have the guys who are great interviewers and have no problem talking. And I hope, because some of these quiet guys are going to be very good players, I'm assuming that these guys are, the front offices know this and they know how to kind of see through that a little bit. But I think the interviews do matter. We've seen it happen in the past.
Yeah. I was just looking through other names. Who's the other guy? Oh, Landon Jackson. Edge rusher, big guy. I think, where's he from? Arkansas. Yeah.
Arkansas.
Right. Anyway, he was really technical in talking about how he's approached the pass rush, how he sets guys up. It was a good conversation. He was an impressive kid. So anyway, a lot of the guys that are edge rushers also just don't seem to fit the Seahawks scheme that much. There's a lot of guys in the 280s, and we've talked about it. That's not really what the Seahawks are looking for. So a little disappointed. Like, I was so excited about the defensive tackles, and really, I only got to talk to a few. Darius Alexander I spoke to. Everyone was talking to Mason Graham. I didn't care because we're.
Oh my God!
This is huge.
You couldn't walk behind that scrum.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
You talked to someone named Tonka Hemingway.
I did talk to Tonka Hemingway. God. Okay, so you guys know how I am with names, right? And so I just was like, I have to go see this kid. And there was only like 4 people over there, and so he was just really engaging. You could ask him anything. He was so nice. His brother plays in the league, apparently. Didn't know. But so it was, or played football. And he was just really great and a lot of fun. Talked a lot of love about his college, which I love that aspect of this, is that, it is a transition from this brotherhood that they have. Well, not always. NIL keeps coming up, but, but so that was really good. But yeah, he was a lot of fun. I liked him a lot.
Last one I'll call out, Cameron Jackson, nose tackle from Florida. He was at a small table, so I literally just got to talk to him one-on-one.
The best.
He's great. He hadn't met with the Seahawks, though. So, yeah, I don't know. It was a little frustrating because, I didn't get to talk to Omar Norman a lot. There's a lot of guys I wanted to talk to that they just... Anyway, whatever. But it was an amazing...
It was fun.
Hectic, exhausting experience. So, Jeff, I'm kind of curious, like, you're a massive consumer of content. So what's the coverage that you've been watching? What's jumped out to you?
I've been trying to watch as much as like the one-on-one interviews with GMs and coaches as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the GMs overall, I was kind of disappointed in. It was a lot of fluff. Like, you didn't get like a real answer from almost anyone. And when like Schneider went on with Garofalo and he went on with Sims and Florio, like they're all like, well, what's going on with Geno Smith and what's going on with DK? And it's like, that's why I liked your interview today, Brian. Like, I want to know like actual questions about like the personnel of the team and like. So there hasn't been a lot that's really jumped out at me. Like, I've been looking, obviously the Matt Stafford stuff today was really kind of taken over. I saw Jordan Schultz and Ian Rappaport beefing a little bit.
Why don't you share for people that aren't keeping up? What's the Stafford stuff that's going on?
So Schultz reported, and I definitely believe this, that Tom Brady has been recruiting Matthew Stafford. And one of the local beat writers with the Raiders said that yesterday. And then Jordan Schultz came out and said that they were in Montana, I think last weekend, at a ski resort, at Brady's ski resort, recruiting him.
Well, he doesn't own the ski resort. Big Sky.
No, I think he has a place there.
But so does Stafford. They both live. It's called the Yellowstone.
And so
Club.
Rap Sheet comes out an hour later and says, actually, like, they just happened to bump into each other there. They didn't talk about like football at all. And Schultz is like, I can sell you a bridge if like you believe that story. Like these two guys in the middle of February just bumping. So, and there's stories that the Giants, their number one preference right now is not drafting one of these guys at 3. It's Stafford. And the Rams people are all saying, don't be surprised if he's gone. So
I think Stafford's brother-in-law just got a job with the Giants.
He did. He's the new receivers coach. Mm-hmm. And they both have the room to take on Cooper Kupp, too, as well, if they want to make that a package deal. And so, like, I don't want to focus on the Rams too much, but it's hard not to. Like, that's a pretty big story coming out of the Combine. Albert Brewer was kind of pissing on this a couple weeks ago, and all of a sudden, like, it's each day it just seems more real. And
well, was it you that sent me the Ryan Fitzpatrick interview with Sean McVay?
No, I refuse to listen to that.
It was pretty informative. I mean, Sean McVay was pretty open about the fact that, you know, they'd like to keep Stafford. They know how important he is, how good he is. They want him to find his value, but they also are trying to think about the next 3 years and the future and how it's a tough position. And McVay, one of the things he said that was interesting was, I didn't do a good job with the Jared Goff situation. I wasn't transparent enough with Jared Goff. I didn't do that well, and I've tried to grow in that way. So we're having a very transparent conversation with Matt Stafford, and I don't think that means he's going to stay there. I think that's what they'd like to have happen. But I also don't think it means he's going to go. So I think everyone wants it to be like, oh, they want to move him, or no, they're going to sign him. I don't think they know. I don't think they know yet. I think there's a lot more that's going to have to happen before that figures itself out. And
God forbid I give Sean McVay credit for anything. But I will say, this is a put it out there and see what happens situation. They want to know what they can get for him. What is his value? That's just good front officing, unfortunately.
I mean, Jeff, you and I have talked about this. The only thing I don't want to have happen, I mean, I'm fine if they keep him. I'm fine if they trade him. I probably slightly prefer them to keep him because I think he is decaying and that I don't want them to get something for him. But if they get, like, if the Giants are dumb enough to give them, like, the top pick, that will be very annoying.
Oh, I'd be very upset.
I mean, if the Raiders give up 6, I mean, whatever, like, that would be very annoying.
I would think it's a second rounder would be a more realistic trade.
Yeah.
For a 37-year-old quarterback.
I was talking about this with Grant yesterday. If I'm the Giants, I give them a 2026 first round pick and maybe more, because if you're Joe Shane, like, you're trying to win now, you use your pick today, and if you're the Rams, you're like, oh, the Giants, they're going to suck. Right. Like, we'll take your first next year.
Yeah.
We'll get our quarterback next year.
I don't like that.
I know, but and it makes a lot of sense. And also, if it doesn't work, Joe Shane's like, it's not going to be my pick next year because I'll be fired. So I think if I'm the Giants, I 100% am trying to make that move. So we'll see. But that's enough about them. What about the report cards that came out? I was annoyed because of the delay of the defense tackle. That's another thing. NFLPA actually had an open session where we could have gone and asked questions about the report cards that they gave to the teams. I couldn't go. So, Jeff, you were all over that. Well, it sounds like the Seahawks did what they did in everything else. They ended in the middle.
I don't understand why fans care about this so much.
You did. You were telling us all about it.
I was just shooting down everyone getting upset about it. But, like, the teams that graded the best the last 2 years are the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have been mid for 20 years. What do we care that they're getting an A+ in ownership? The Atlanta Falcons were the number 2 rated team. Like, I think it matters for the players how the facilities are. And I think it's interesting what the Seahawks did. But, like, the Rams got a C in ownership. The Rams have been one of like the better run teams for several years now. The Chiefs got a C- in ownership. They've been like what, 1 million Super Bowls. They have the premier quarterback, the premier coach. Like, what does this really indicate? But like, okay, if we want to talk about it, the Seahawks did pretty well across the board. Ended up with an average grade because they had a couple C- in there and a couple Cs. Their training room and their trainers did not score well. And I'm not sure what that means, like the strength and conditioning staff or just the machines they had. Their only A was head coach, Mike Macdonald, who all the buzz last year was, oh, Mike's lost the room.
Right.
The vibe of the team is all screwed up, and players don't like him. He's too hard on them. He got
There's someone here that wouldn't have given him an A to start with, right?
I would not have, not at all. No, I totally agree.
Dayna, did you see him today? Like, were you at that presser?
Yeah.
I was front and center today.
Anything? I didn't see it yet. Anything good?
I mean,
No.
It was, I have explained this to Brian. I'll explain to you guys. I do like him, and I'm starting to like him better as he seems to be lightening up just a little bit. I think that first year, especially the first offseason, he was so tight. I could not get, I don't know, a read on him.
Well, going from Pete, who is like, Pete wins every press conference he ever does.
Can I say one thing about Pete?
Yeah.
I know that you guys get sick of this, but so every single player that I watched interviewed today, where there was a Raiders guy, and he's like, did they talk to the Raiders? And if they said yes, like, how did it go? He's like, great, I got to meet Pete Carroll. I was just like, keep hitting me right here in the heart. They were so excited about Pete, but I think that's just who he is.
Well, I'm conflicted with Pete. Like, every time I hear him talk, I'm like, oh my God. And then I hear Brian's story that he wasn't able to connect his headphones properly. And I'm like, okay, I kind of get where I'm like,
I do too.
I know. So it's like, I love the guy, but he's what, 73 years old?
I get it.
I think that's so funny. And there's another moment in his press conference yesterday where he talked about analytics. And the way he threw it out there, it was like he felt like he needed to say analytics to be modern. And I was like, analytics for Pete Carroll is 50 combination of passes and run attempts, like I'll believe it when I see it that he's got like that he's not going to be hormonal about his challenges and all that kind of stuff. And fourth down, going for it. But
and let's be honest, his strong suit are college age players, and so of course they were excited to meet him.
It was interesting yesterday. One thing we didn't talk about, he did mention how they had such an advantage their early years when he first came back to Seattle because of how much they knew about the college kids. We've all talked about that. They didn't really acknowledge that as much. And so everyone's always like, oh, Scott McCloughan, when he left, that's why the things went downhill. Basically 3 years in, they had gone through the players that Pete knew, and I think that was a much bigger factor in the fact that things went woo.
And now the Raiders have that again with Chip Kelly on board.
Yeah.
And so that'll be interesting to see how they use that.
Look, my belief is that Pete Carroll can go in there and they can turn around the Raiders and be a really good team. I believe that. And I'm hoping for that.
Me too.
I also believe that if he was with Seattle, that wouldn't happen.
I agree completely.
I don't think he could have the success he's going to have with the Raiders if he had stayed in Seattle. And so I just want to get that out there
I agree with you
now
completely.
before, like, that will be, everyone was like, well, why didn't we keep him? And I'm like,
It's not the same.
that's not the way the world works.
Yep, it's not. And because then you also have to factor in the Chip Kelly aspect, the Tom Brady aspect. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
it's a huge
different
deal.
variables. And so, yeah, I agree. It's apples and oranges. You cannot compare the two.
Yeah. Should we take our patron questions?
Sure, let me get them.
We've got a couple patrons. We have not done a real Hawk Talk for a couple of weeks. Thank you for everyone tuning in the middle of the day on the West Coast. Jeff's like, hey, this is great. My early afternoon. This works for me.
Yeah, this is prime time.
Dana's like, this is great for me too.
Awesome.
But Dana and I are gonna go. We're gonna go get a steak a little bit later. So I've had steak the first night. I had a burger last night. I'm gonna have steak tonight. I don't know if I'm gonna make it home. Like at this rate, we'll see. My doctor's not gonna be happy when he takes my blood pressure.
No.
Next, but we'll
It's
see.
okay.
Is tonight St. Elmo's?
It is St. Elmo's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the Indy famous steakhouse.
Yeah, there's a bunch of us going. It'll be fun, I think. So, yeah, there should be a lot of people there. All right. So this first question is from Hawks fan Matt Mann. How much is there a re-emphasis of the running game throughout the league, a reflection of the talent or lack thereof, or at the quarterback position? I'm sorry, let me start that again. How much is the re-emphasis of the running game throughout the league a reflection of the talent or lack thereof at quarterback position at a whole?
Jeff?
It's a good question.
I don't think it's that. I think it's what happened, and it started actually with Russell Wilson. The too high safety thing became the NFL's defensive strategy. If you remember the let Russ cook year, what happened was the Giants actually with Patrick Graham went too high on them, and they completely shut down Russell Wilson. And it seems like the whole league has shifted towards the too high. What's the way to beat too high defenses? Running the football. And Pete talked about that, and everyone laughed at him like he was some senile old man, but it's the best way. And the teams that are winning could get you at a too high defense. Detroit, Philadelphia, it's been running the football. And I think that has become cyclical to kind of counteract what's been going on defensively. I don't think it's because of quarterbacks, or if anything, like quarterbacks, I don't think running the ball helps all quarterbacks. Like we can make the case though. I think it's really a reflection of what's happened defensively and how you win.
That's very nice, Will. Thanks.
That's awesome.
One of the things that Jeff's answer reminded me of, actually two things. In talking to J.J. Pegues, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, one, he plays fullback as well as defensive tackle, and I asked him, Jeff, we're getting a little feedback from you. There we go. I think we're good. I asked him, like, you hear all the times where someone goes from offense to defense and how that helps them. Someone used to play quarterback or someone used to play receiver and then they play defensive back and then kind of read things better. So I was like, well, so you've gone from tight end to defense and then you've gone from defense and you still play defense, but you also now have gone back to offense as a runner, as a fullback. Has that helped you? And he's like, absolutely. I now know exactly how the defensive tackles are shading. And so you'll see on a lot of my runs, I'll just cut it to the outside because I know where their responsibilities are going to be. I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah.
I also asked him about Jackson Dart, who was his teammate, and he was like glowing
Really?
about Jackson Dart. He's like, that's my dog. That is a guy I would ride with anywhere. And I thought that was of note. Like, this is a defensive player who does play a little bit as a fullback, and that was probably the most effusive I heard anyone talk about another player or teammate today. So thought people would want to know that because Jeff talking about too high safeties, you want to get people out of too high, fullback is a big part of how you do that.
Interesting. All right, next one. This one's from Sovereign Alex. How much do you think Mike looks at edge rusher size / athleticism versus technique and skill? Feels like with his teacher mantra, high upside guys who need development might fit his style better over time.
Let's give all these to Jeff because I've been talking a lot.
It's hard to say. Like, Baltimore has really put an emphasis on historically on physical size specs and things like that. But I don't know Mike's kind of background in that because he's only been defensive coordinator a couple of years. But I can't just help, and like this is an old quote, but like Mike Tomlin was on a podcast last year, and he said like one of the things he doesn't understand about like draft coverage is like every time these comes out and these players, we're talking about these players and we only focus on like the weaknesses. And like, and he's like, as a coach, like, that's what I want. I want to teach these guys how to adjust their weaknesses. So Mike, with like what Mike talks about and what John talks about, Mike, is like the clarity of how he teaches. I remember like Jordan Rodriguez came on and she does a lot with like the Rams and that group, and she's really good. She said the thing that they love about Mike is the way he teaches is just so clear, and he could take a lot of guys and make a very complex concept very simple. And so I can't help but wonder, like, does he have that Tomlin mentality? Does he have that where he's like, we don't need to focus on what these guys can't do? Like, Pete always talked about that. Like, I want to coach them up so they're not weak. But look, I know John always talks about they got to be aware of deficiencies and how to overcome them. But I don't know if I have a clear answer on that yet. I'm kind of talking in circles here. But I think Mike would be the kind of guy, like, that's his thing. Like, the clarity of his teaching, I think that can come across to a lot more people than, like, we need just this specs or this physical size.
Makes sense. All right, this next one is from Alvi. Is Dave Pearson's going to come back with John to your table before the end of the week because they missed you yesterday?
No, I highly, highly doubt it. I mean, that was going to be a serendipitous moment. It would have been really cool. But no, I think for those guys, they've got a million other things. Their whole focus here is football and learning about these kids and figuring out who they're going to add.
Are you supposed to be holding your mic?
Only if I want to hear Jeff.
Oh, okay.
No, my mic did change. I'm not sure what happened there.
Okay.
In this case, I think that they've done their time. They've done their press time. It is like a penance for them. And John rarely does press time. So, no, I don't think he's going to be back. It's a shame. But it was great to be able to have Mike come on today.
Yeah, that was huge. All right. This one is from Braxton. What's a preconception you had about the NFL Combine that has maybe changed since you've been in attendance?
A preconception that's changed since I've been in attendance? I thought it was going to just be really about the players and like the prospects. And it feels almost equally weighted about NFL interactions, like media interacting, teams interacting, agents interacting, NFLPA. It's like an NFL convention.
That's
right?
a really good way of putting it, yeah.
Right? So, like, if you can imagine, you go to Comic-Con or something, which I don't, but it would probably be entertaining. But, like, you see everybody involved with all the different of your favorite anime shows or whatever it is you pay attention to. And, like, that's what it's like here, just walking down. So I didn't realize how much that was a part of it.
I don't think I did either.
And so I'm curious, same question to you, Dayna, because it's your first time too.
I felt it was the same. I felt it would be more about, the prospects and, the players and all of that. I knew that there were a lot of conversations that went on, like, behind closed doors between the teams and what have you. But it's the full interaction. It's like we're in a ballroom and the entire NFL from top to bottom is it. Roger Goodell's the only one that's not here, right? Like, it's a little strange.
I saw him.
Oh, did you? See, I missed
first
it.
night he was at the restaurant we were at.
Yeah.
He didn't say hi. He just walked in.
What?
I know.
Rude. But I think that that's surprising. And the lack of, or I shouldn't say the lack of, it's more the camaraderie of it all. Like, it's very just like, this, coach is talking to this coach is talking to this GM. Like, it is a convention. That's a really good way of putting it.
And I mean, the energy level is really cool because it's very casual.
Very.
So, like, we were, before the show, Bucky Brooks was sitting like one table over, and he was like cracking up about something, and he sat there for probably half an hour, and I was like, I should go over and get him on the show. He's like, I'm too tired. I don't feel like recruiting anybody. But like, you just walk up to, Bucky Brooks, or Charles Davis ended up sitting down a few minutes later, or all these folks that you wouldn't otherwise have a chance to interact with, and they're just here like everybody else. So, yeah, I think it's also like the barriers are not as high. I thought that there'd be a little bit more exclusivity. At least within the media, it's like CBS and some of those bigwigs have their big
The studio they're building for ESPN across the way is insane.
Is it?
Yeah.
I haven't even seen that yet.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then like tomorrow we'll be able to go into Lucas Oil and start to see the actual, competitions or the exercises that they do, the measurements.
You were talking about barriers. I have to give an example. So this afternoon, the coaches were out there. We talked to Mike Macdonald, but Stefanski was there from the Browns, right?
Yeah.
And he had quite a few people around him. Well, he walked off stage and walked over to talk to someone, I think, at CBS, and everyone just followed him. They had him cornered up against a barrier. There were probably 50 people around him, and they were this far from him, and I was like, and he's just sitting there answering the questions. I'd been like, I wouldn't think that was allowed, but they did. It was interesting.
Interesting.
He has lots of questions.
He's got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, he does.
How are we doing? Any other patron questions?
Oh, yes, I think there's one more. Let's see. This one's from Bill A. In your Mike Macdonald interview this morning, the two of you talked about projects and having more time for them in the off season. What exactly is a project? A focus on a particular facet of a play game?
Yeah,
or game
yeah.
play, excuse me.
So Mike and I have talked about this a little bit before. I asked him during the season about this stuff because he is obsessed with football. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And so it seems obvious to me that someone who is smart, academic, and into film and just grinding all the time, that he'd be wanting to know, okay, what's the state of the art? Where are the trends? Like sometimes it's happening in college football, sometimes it's happening around the league. And so a project would be like, okay, there's a team running a style of defense that we haven't seen before. How did it do? Why did it do good or bad? Is there anything we can learn from it? That could be a project. It could be, we saw, based on data, that a significant change in how many people are playing cover 2 in this situation, and what formations were working against it or not. What do we learn from that? Like, it could be any number of things. And it sounds like it is any number of things. They've got a lot of them going on. And I will say, I don't think that was a Pete Carroll thing. I don't think, I didn't get the sense that Pete Carroll from season to season would come back with a whole new perspective, a whole new set of like learnings. I think this offseason he feels like, because he wasn't in the game, he feels like maybe he got that. But I think this is going to be part of Mike's DNA. That's going to be a key differentiator for him. He's going to he talks about chasing edges. That's what this is. And so, I loved hearing about that from him.
That was awesome. That's it.
That's all our questions.
Last question.
Thank you for everyone over at patreon.com/hawkblogger who put those in to the Slack channel. We get those questions each week that we do a show. We missed the last couple weeks. My fault on that regard, but glad we could get to them now. We'll get to them when we do another show. We're going to be probably on a every other week schedule for most of the off season going forward. What else? Anything else that we missed?
I'm curious from you both, like, since you've been down there, like from a Seahawks perspective, like, have you learned anything that you found interesting? Like, I know the Geno stuff, that doesn't really, Tyler Lockett, I don't know why people keep asking about that. It's pretty obvious what's that. Anything that you've learned from speaking to the people you've seen or hearing things, like anything Seahawks related that's jumped out to you?
I got one for you.
Go ahead.
I hadn't reported this previously because, like I said, things are coming in and out of my brain like at rapid speed right now. I asked Mike Macdonald in the off-podium presser, all right, we heard from Clint Kubiak that run blocking for the tight end position is really important. Noah Fant hasn't always been known as the strongest run blocker. Do you think that has any implications for like areas of development for his game? And Mike Macdonald, he didn't want to come strong, but he started to. He was like, I would challenge that contention about Noah Fant's game. Mac, their tight ends coach, he says he's done a great job with him, and that he considers Noah Fant to be a complete tight end. Quote, complete tight end. So anyone, including me, that thought possibly Noah Fant's going to be a cap casualty based off of his, I think, pretty inflated contract. Think again. Noah Fant seems pretty safe on the Seahawks roster, and I don't know that I sense anything regarding changes to his salary.
I got the impression today after his press conference and hearing a couple of other things that they don't think huge wholesale changes need to be made. I think they're very happy for the most part with their roster. And so they don't feel like they need to go and dump a bunch of people and start over. I think that they truly are going to lead it back to coaching and see what that does with this roster.
Yeah, I think that's mostly right. I think the offensive line, they've acknowledged that they're going to have to make changes there. But even there, I think that they, Jalen Sundell came up again today, and he was asked about, is that about center? And Mike made the point that Jalen Sundell has shown 5 position flexibility. And the only reason for him to bring that up was because they might be looking at Jalen Sundell as something other than a center. So Jalen Sundell might be in the guard conversation. And again, he played with Gray Zabel at North Carolina State, played in a similar scheme. He was a backup tackle for the Seahawks last year, so he's got that kind of athleticism. He also played fullback at times. So I think Jalen Sundell is a secretly large part of what they're thinking about evaluating for this offseason on the offensive line, and it could be at any number of positions, most likely guard or center. And so that's interesting. I thought that I hadn't really heard from him before.
The fan thing is really interesting. I would have assumed that was an obvious cap casualty, and it changes the way we're probably going to look at tight end, because now they just need to replace Pharaoh Brown, really. That's more like a 5th-round pick, 4th-round pick. I think they're going to be in the free agent center market. I don't know what Drew Dahlman's price point is. I think that's going to be, hearing them not mention Olu really at all, that makes me think they want to get better there. I heard Greg Rosenthal from NFL.com say that Dahlman's getting a lot of buzz down there. I think they're going to be in on him. They've made pretty big splashes. Draymond Jones, Leonard Williams. I think people kind of overlooked that because Leonard Williams was re-signed. I think
even
Dahlman. Even
pretty
Uchenna. So it's really, I think Dahlman is going to be on their radar. And I don't know if I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. I think it fits so well. I think it really set up the rest of the offseason. Because, Brian, I was happy you asked about Christian Haynes, and hearing that answer, I think I said Saturday, I think he's going to be good in this scheme. I don't know how good, but I think he might end up being the starting right guard.
I think he's going to be in the mix for sure. And I agree with you on Dahlman. If I had to bet right now with everything I know, which is not that much, but with what I know, I think he is their biggest target, and that's their big move. Like, if they enter the draft having added Drew Dahlman, a veteran, but not old, 26, who is a wide zone center to the middle of that line, I think they're going to feel like they had a successful free agency. I think that's their number one, besides their, extensions and other stuff that they have to do. I think my bet is that's their number one target. And I think they'll spend money. I think, like you said, they've been willing to spend some money. So we'll see. I bet they're having conversations with his agent this week. They're gauging his value.
So I haven't had a chance to ask you guys if you think Jones will be back.
Draymond Jones.
No. Oh, Ernest. Sorry.
Ernest Jones.
Yeah.
I think for sure he's back.
Okay.
I think similarly to what I was just saying about Dahlman, I'm sure his agent is going through and gauging his value this week and what his price point will be. And John Schneider's doing the same thing. And most likely, either next week or the week after, as long as there's not a big disparity,
okay,
I would guess that they'll make the deal. So. Here's the thing. I would say this is a bigger risk of falling apart. Like Ernest Jones and his agent could play hardball and whatever. We're going to go to free agency. We're going to get the most money. Ernest Jones does not want to move. He has a young baby. They've moved twice already. He said that when he arrived. He loves the players. He loves the city. He loves the coaches. He's a great fit. His agent's not going to be able to convince him to move in order to make $1 million more a year if it's that kind of gap. So I think there's the right kind of pressure from the player. I think there's the right kind of pressure from the coaching staff to bring him back, and the players. Everything points to this getting done.
Good.
Yeah.
And I did hear John, I don't know if you've heard him with Mike Garofalo yesterday. Did you guys see that interview?
I did.
He acknowledged they kind of botched free agency last year, which I hadn't heard him say before. He said, we brought in a lot of solid players that didn't fit. And so I think this year they're going to be really cognizant of that. I think this puts them way ahead, especially having that alignment from the offensive coaches. But back to Ernest, I think they saw the other side of that. I don't think they can go in with the needs they have on both sides of the ball up front, like Mike said, to create another big position hole. I think they're going to sign him.
Good.
I hope he's back regardless. Like, he's a great guy, great fit, great player. As like greed, like I want the best for Ernest, but I hope it's like $9 million. Like, that's what I'm hoping for. If it's up to 12, I'll be like, okay, it makes sense. If it's like 15, I'll be like, ooh, that's rough.
The cap going up, everyone's like, oh, the Seahawks are getting more money. Like,
Yeah,
no, fools. Like, that means now Ernest and Gino, they're going to ask for more money. So it's all relative. You end up where you started. So I'm sure their agent was licking their chops when that cap went up, because 9 now probably becomes 12.
The Noah Fant news is big in the Caps thing. Like, I think that puts more pressure on Uchenna and that deal, which we also heard they're still working on. I think it puts more pressure on Draymond Jones.
Yeah.
I heard from Mike Macdonald today that, from his perspective, Jaron Reed's going to come back.
Yep, I got that.
I thought that maybe that they would let him go, not because he's a bad player or a bad fit, but for money and because they need Brian Murphy to take a step forward. So, like, Jeff, the whole thing, we keep coming back. We're like, oh, you cut this guy, you do this, and you're fine cap-wise. Those names are kind of winnowing down. I mean, Tyler Lockett will still happen. They've got to extend Gino. But, it's going to be a little bit more tight than I think we had hoped.
I think Draymond probably gets cut. George Fant probably gets cut. Rayshawn Jenkins, I would guess.
I didn't ask about that. He's on my list of curiosities.
I would guess if he's a third safety, he's probably I think they could save $6 million if they cut him.
It was interesting that John Schneider in that same interview talked about, I don't know if it was Garofalo, but I think it was the Chris Sims interview.
Yeah, I heard
where
this.
He said that the hardest position to scout is safety. And it sounds like other GMs have been saying the same thing. So that's interesting.
Sorry, I can hear Grant in the background, and I started laughing.
Yeah. All right, let's get through some super chats, and then we'll let folks go. So Nathan Mahari has become a YouTube member. I don't know. It doesn't show me if you've upgraded or you've become a member. Either way, thank you and welcome. Nano Tiger, we got these big face, like the avatars now, so you're going to be showing. You hear who Quinn Ewers QB coach is. McCarthy. Get used to Ewers, Brian. No, I will not. I will have a similar reaction if they call Quinn Ewers' name that I had when they called D. Eskridge's name. That's how out on Quinn Ewers I am.
That was a big reaction.
It is the wrong move. And if they take him and he works out, I will be thrilled. But everything I've seen is like, do not go that direction. All right. Nunya has gifted 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. Thank you so much, Nunya, for doing that. Andrew McCrae, Super Chat says, do you have late round draft crushes? I like edge Ahmad Husseinian from Boise State, started football in 19 and had 22 sacks and 35 tackles for loss in the last 2 years. Jeff, do you have any late round draft crushes?
Not really. I'm still trying to really focus on the first 3 rounds at this point. I think there's some interesting running backs in the late rounds. I know I saw Mina joking around John, don't draft running backs, but every GM who's spoken, to Mina, to kind of push back on what Mina said, has literally said the same thing about this running back class. It's awesome. No, I don't really have one yet. Get back to me in a month. I will. So, Brian, I know you're on the Sims as much as anyone, but no, I'm not really in the late rounds yet.
Well, a guy that I've been really high on that is super low in all the Sims is Jabbar Muhammad, the cornerback who used to be a Husky and now played for Oregon. I think he's a quality corner. I've been like, why am I this off? And so I was talking with Ryan Fowler last night of the Draft Network, who's been on with me a bunch. And he's like, oh, no, he's going to maybe go in the top 50. He might go in the top 100. Yeah.
Okay, if you get to talk to Schneider or McDonald again, you should ask them about these Sims. I'm curious if they play with them. I'm curious if they think they're any accurate at all. I know John said they have a guy who their literal job is to find every mock draft possible
Yeah.
and like send them reports. Like
Yeah.
I'm very curious if like Mike's sitting at home at night and like playing with the simulators.
I don't know if I can with any credibility, but I'll think about if there's a way I can ask. But
Or maybe get Trevor Sikkema to ask. I don't know.
I just think there's some. I think the Sims are actually get a bad rap. I think that for the most part, they're useful as a way to kind of gauge where prospects' values are, and they're generally directionally okay. But if you think they're like super accurate, that this is the 175th best player,
Right.
no. So I think Jabbar Muhammad might be one of those guys that isn't a late round guy, but all the Sims seem to think he's a late round guy. I also like the guy Thor because his name's Thor.
Oh, that is a good. That's
Yeah.
almost as good as Tonka. I
Yeah.
like that.
If we
yeah.
could have Thor and Tonka,
Oh, I'm in.
let's do that. Let's
I'm
do
in.
that. That would be fun. All right. Good question there, Andrew. We've got a couple new. Seattle Z12 is a new member or an upgraded member. Grumpy Gilmore, new member or an upgraded member. And Chris Canavan. So welcome to all the new members. Great stuff. Going to continue to have some members-only content while I'm here. Right now, the way I'm choosing to do it is it's going to be members first because I do want everyone to be able to enjoy the content eventually. So all the stuff that I've uploaded today will be available by 6 a.m. tomorrow Pacific time for folks to watch. Patreon, it's also available for Patreon members, so you can head over there. And I'll be uploading more either between now and dinner, or maybe I'll just go back to my room and try
Take
to
a nap.
take a nap. I don't know.
That's.
Before we go out.
Have you guys run into anyone that just like stopped you in your tracks or just like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm seeing this person, whether they're in the media or in the league, or is it just like you're just used to it by now?
I'm not someone who gets starstruck, and
Yeah.
I've just been lucky throughout my life to kind of have known people that other people find interesting. But it's, I haven't really on this one. I did.
That's healthy. That's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but no, I just haven't. Have you?
Not in the way that Jeff's asking.
Right.
I think the thing that I tweeted about this already, but the amount of big name reporters who are like 5'5"
Oh my God, I know.
and like shorter
Yeah.
is crazy. I mean, I'm like 5'9". I'm not tall. I'm like supposedly average height, but I've felt short my whole life because I played a lot of sports and they, 5'9" is not tall on the basketball court. But I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm tall here by any stretch, but there's a lot of short dudes.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
Like, why is there something about being a media member in the NFL that leads to you being like 5'5"?
Yeah.
Like Bugsy Bogues.
And then especially compared to the players who are like 6'3" and up, and you're
Yeah.
like huge humans. So
Yeah.
Okay, I need to come to the combine then because I'm like 5'11", 6 feet. I'm going to tower over these guys.
Oh my God, you'll feel great about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I also like that the dress code is
Very casual.
It works. Like, there's some people rocking their like corporate, big media suits. There's a lot of people just in hoodies and sweatshirts and jeans, and so that's like I'm in the right business.
Yeah.
That's the dress
Definitely.
code.
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
I have like a weird pet peeve about like people wearing suits in like 2025. And like I think suits should just be gone. Like CEOs of like, you guys are out in tech area, like you got CEOs wearing like Lululemon and quarter zips. And like I see all these videos of like GMs at the draft and they're wearing suits in their own draft room. Like I think it's weird. Like we need to get away from this. Like I don't understand why like Howie Roseman's walking around the draft room sweating, or like I saw Schneider sweating yesterday. But we got to get rid of suits.
I'm with you. I mean, I've seen they've started making like stretchy suits. I could get into stretchy suits. I'm very like based on my diet the last few days, I need stretchy everything. So that's appealing.
I'm on the new parent diet, so I'm probably looking worse than you. So
Yeah, it's rough. Well, man, let's wrap up for now. I mean, we've got a lot more coming tomorrow. This is a triple pod day today, plus dozen plus videos already up there. We're gonna be, once we get out of here in a few days, like it's gonna start getting into free agency. I'm gonna do a free agency marathon. Like I'm just gonna be on as all the names come out,
Cool.
So Jeff, if you're,
maybe I'll take that day off.
Yeah, maybe we'll just react to all the crazy news.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm
What's
down
that?
for that.
Streamathon. Grant says it's a streamathon. I don't know if I feel good about that. It sounds OnlyFans.
We'll have Grant on when the Purdy extension comes out.
Yeah. So I do feel like we didn't get a chance to hear how Grant tortured John Lynch today, or vice versa. But that's maybe another time. So, all right, folks, we're gonna let you go. Have a great rest of what's probably your afternoon, and we will get back to you tomorrow with a bunch more. All right. Thanks, Jeff, for hopping on. Great to see you, and thanks to everybody who joined. Take care.